Today we have three amazing speakers for you. Hellon's lead designer, Laura Lerkkanen, will first share her key aspects of building a successful CX ambassador program. We're then going to hear firsthand experiences from two of Hellon's amazing clients. Siobhan Hennessy from Musgrave in Ireland will share her thoughts via a video recording, and Suvi Tuukkanen, who's with us live today from Veikkaus, will tell us about her experiences leading CX transformation. My name is Laura Lerkkanen, and I work as a lead designer and art director here at Hellon Helsinki office. And I have years of experience of working and running CX development projects here in Finland, and also internationally. And in this Dare to Share session, I'm introducing Hellon's way of driving CX transformations from inside the organization in employee-centric ways. And these initiatives we refer as Hellon's CX ambassador programs. So it's a unique approach and unique way of driving a change in a positive employee-centric manner. Let me start from a quick observation. So probably quite many of you come with the background of CX development and have faced a public discourse over the CX development and heard the statement that you're facing the age of customer, or by 2020, CX will be the determining factor of defining the competition between the most successful organizations. So first, I would like to acknowledge that it has become quite evident for all of us that actually today we are living the age of customer. And let me illustrate this observation with a couple of key data and studies conducted internationally. So first of all, 90% of companies state that they compete on customer experience despite the industry. And nearly the same percentage of business leaders state that CX is the top growth engine. So it's the highest than any other growth area or strategic initiative that they have on the table. And this has also become quite evident for the customers themselves. So, oops, one slide too fast. Let's come back. So I was saying that it has become quite evident for the customers also. So nearly 80% of customers say that they are increasingly more loyal to the companies who understand their needs and understand what they want to achieve through interacting with the offering of an organization. But however, despite the quite ambitious will and these statements and desire for this direction, it seems, according to studies, that most of these transformation initiatives tend to fail. So why is this? Why is there such a high desire, such a high will for transforming the organization to be more human-centric and customer-centric, but there's such a large probability for these initiatives to fail and not succeed? So let me illustrate this matter with a couple of self-experienced observations from Hellon about this matter. So firstly, even though many of the business leaders have stated, and it's even written down in the strategy, that we want to provide the best CX of our industry, and our vision is to provide the best CX of our industry, it's often it's not acknowledged that it's not enough to have only a strategic desire and strategic statements. That rarely translates to concrete actions and change plans for the organizations. So there's a tendency within this setup of forgetting that actually employees and people are the key of realizing the strategy and actualizing the change to happen. And the leaders and managers' job is actually help the employees to succeed within this role. So help them to succeed in the change creation inside the organization. The second observation focuses on that even though customer experience would have been stated in the strategy and the desire is there, more urgent matters tend to overdrive it. And here the key is to not keep customer experience in ambiguous level, so to say, but to connect it with concrete outcomes and concrete impact and quick wins that can be created within the organization. So illustrate very concretely, how can we enable the transformation and change happen? And through these concrete outcomes, quick wins and metrics, illustrate and build a common excitement towards the possibilities that could be created together. Thirdly, the focus of the leaders and the organization tends to get on people who are the loudest of criticizing the change. So let me say, there will be always a change resistance. And unfortunately, often our focus goes on managing the change resistance. But if we want to enable a positive change to happen, the focus and the visibility should be on people who are the natural enablers of the change and who get the most motivated and excited about the change. And our focus and empowerment should be on supporting and nurturing these people, so we can actually enable the change to happen from inside and get others on board and excited about the created change together. And fourthly, this might be quite tricky sometimes because our focus tends to get very often to the risks and challenges that might face us on the way of transforming and changing our ways of working. But actually, I think that our focus should be increasingly on the inspirational side. So pointing out the possibilities and the opportunities that can be created together and the exciting growth and exciting aspects. So that's the way of getting people excited, inspired, and reach for those opportunities that are there. So illustrating, building a narrative that's exciting for people to join in and become the change together. And in response to these identified challenges that the organizations typically have, Hellon has developed a design-driven toolbox for enabling a customer-centric transformation. And this toolbox can be described as threefolded. So often we start from building a foundation. So understanding what currently happens at the organization, what is there, what are the biggest gaps in capabilities, what should be strengthened, developed, what is the direction we should take. The second state is to set the targets, so objectives and direction for everybody to follow. So defining together with Hellon's experts and the organization's experts, what is the desired direction and target state we should take, and what are the critical enablers that help us to drive and enable the change forward. And then the third layer is about driving the change. So how do we get people excited on board? How do we facilitate and execute the change to happen? And within this aspect, today we're focusing on ambassador program. So a specific approach for getting employees build up the bottom-up adoption effect inside the organization, and through that, driving the change forward across the organization. So after illustrating and introducing some of the tendencies and possible challenges that the organizations tend to have, let's stop here for a second. And I would like to invite you to dream together about the future possibilities. Probably quite many of you come with the background of CX development, maybe with a design background. So we all should be quite good at dreaming, right? So let's dream. What if a change or a transformation could be a fun and exciting experience for employees? What if? Have you ever even thought that this kind of approach could be possible? And this could be the way of approaching massive and ambiguous and abstract change programs. And this is kind of the starting point and the starting baseline question we try to answer each time we're designing an upcoming ambassador program at Hellon together with our client organizations. So let's go a little bit more concrete. What does the CX ambassadorship mean in practice, and how is the ambassador program designed? So first of all, CX ambassadors are, so to say, a network of people, employees who are kind of the natural change makers, the CX champions of an organization, who have the natural motivation and capabilities to build up this excitement, adoption effect towards these approaches at the organization. So they are kind of the key of helping you to connect and drive through the CX initiatives within the organization and start a movement around those. The CX ambassador program focuses on building the capabilities of these individuals. So it's a systematic approach and a systematic way of creating and building the capabilities within this network, so we can enable the change to internally happen. And what's important here is to connect the program with a bigger purpose for an organization. And what the bigger purpose means, to connect it with the strategic initiatives that the organization has on the table and has a high importance to adopt. So for example, it might be an implementation of upcoming and newly established CX strategy, or it might be a concrete way of building and developing the CX of the services and offering of the organization, or it might be an initiative of exploring new opportunities for service offering. So it's kind of a higher and bigger goal that the organization has that provides a purpose and reasoning for the ambassadors to exist and focus their work on and focus on advancing within the organization. And this doesn't only provide the guiding star and North Star for the program design, but this is also the way of building a top management commitment towards these approaches and initiatives. So it's a way of concretely visualizing and illustrating for the top management that through this program, we can make the change happen and we can create these quick wins, and they can visibly see and concretely see how we are taking steps towards the strategic purpose and initiative that we are committed to and stating out loud. So let's have a look at how does Hellon's ambassador program consist of. So basically we have 4 building blocks for the program. The first building block is about training the ambassadors. So within this phase, we aim to identify the key people and the contributors who are then assessed and educated to become the CX ambassadors. And the training part consists of both lecture, so theory about the CX and about the matters that are in the high importance of the program and the focus of the program, but also the participants get to try their learnings in practice. So the participants conduct during the program mini projects where they can apply their learnings and customer-centric approaches within their kind of real life context and project context. So they learn both in theory and in practice how to drive customer-centric approaches forward at the organization. The second building block focuses on educating the leaders and the management of an organization. So we call this C-suite ambassador training. And the purpose of this building block is that it's not only enough that we are training and educating and building capabilities of employees, but we also need to build the capabilities of the leaders, how CX should be led. And often within this building block, we use the kind of baseline studies and observations of the organization to give focus. What are the areas we should focus on and build the leadership competencies and capabilities within the company. Then the third building block happens after the more intense ambassador training part. So during the ambassador training, we aim to identify participants who have the tendency of being so-called star ambassadors. So maybe the people who are the most motivated of driving the change, or who have the most natural capabilities of doing that and are most excited about this. And they are then assessed and educated to become the internal change makers. And maybe their role is focused more on continuous purpose at the organization. So we are providing master classes for them and providing a train-the-trainer package for them that helps them to scale up their learnings and understanding within different teams and different forums of the organization. And then naturally, the phase 4 is a continuity for the third phase. So scaling up the understanding and learnings throughout the organization. So we are launching the STAR ambassadors then to systematically and continuously execute and scale up their expertise and learnings throughout the organization. So to sum it up, ambassador program is about 3 aspects. So first of all, we are connecting the ambassadorship always to the bigger purpose and strategic initiatives of the organization. And through that, the participants are able to learn the theory of CX and deepen their understanding about the customer-centric approaches. And second of all, practice these approaches in concrete through the executed mini projects and concrete practices that they do during the program. And that also creates visibility for the change and evidence for the change that's created within the organization. And thirdly, they're enabled and assessed to scale up and distribute their learnings across the organization through the train-the-trainer model within a continuous practice after the more intense training part. I would also like to point out that the CX ambassadors can be assigned to different types of roles within the organization, depending on the organizational needs and context. So first of all, the ambassadors may act or become as a concrete team members within CX development projects after the training program. Or it might be that the ambassadors become the advocates of CX or facilitators of change who lead discussions or point out discussions and emerging topics around CX that build a consensus and discourse across the organization. Or within teams, they might raise up topics from the customer experience strategy and then facilitate the discourse about how does this translate for the team into a specific behavior. Or then the ambassadors can be also assigned to become, so to say, a link between a CX development team, CX development initiatives, and the concrete kind of practices that happens within the field. So between the employees and the CX development team become the linkage and connection and back and forth feedback purpose between these different forums. And as at Hellon, we have been running quite some CX ambassador programs during the past years. A couple of learnings I would like to share with you, what to consider when designing a CX ambassador program yourself. So first of all, can't emphasize enough that it is super important that we build from the beginning the top management support for these initiatives. So this doesn't only ensure you the resources, the mandate, and create a higher priority for the program, but this also helps them see visible results of the strategy implementation and the organizational change. And second of all, it's quite important that we create a clear role definition for the CX ambassadors. So this helps to manage the expectations of the participants before they join the program, but also communicate what happens after the program and what's expected and required from them. And it's also good to identify that probably one size and one role doesn't fit all, but maybe there needs to be somewhat of a variety within different types of organizations within your specific program. So the ambassadors and the participants can participate and take part in ways that match in their interests and skills and personal development goals and ambitions. And finally, but definitely not leastly, consider how can you make the program rewarding and fun experience for the participants. And at Hellon, we try to always think ways of increasing the participation experience within all of the trainings that we create and design. And we also think, what are the ways of providing a platform for the participants to excel and succeed within their ambassador role, and how can we celebrate those successes together? So before I wrap up my part, let me come back to the question of what if. So what if a change could be a fun and exciting experience for employees? So Hellon's ambassador program aims to answer to this question in 3 ways. So first of all, the program builds bridges throughout the organization between the strategic initiatives and concrete actions. And it builds up the commitment both from top down to bottom up to connect them within a common purpose. And second of all, we try to go beyond training. So even though we aim to grow up the employee capabilities and competencies, the program is more about nurturing people to grow into ambassador roles. And this kind of creates the commitment towards these common purposes and initiatives that we are driving together. And thirdly, the program creates an insight at its best for each individual of how can I be a key contributor for the change to happen. And at the best, this can start an internal flame in people of becoming the change makers of the organization. So thank you all from my behalf of joining today's session. And let's continue to our next brilliant speakers from Musgrave and Vikkos. But I'm more than delighted to answer all of your questions during this webinar that we're having, but also after. So don't hesitate to contact me around the CX ambassador programs or other CX matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Next, Siobhan Hennessy, Head of Customer Experience Design at Musgrave in Ireland, is going to share her thoughts via a video recording. And the reason why Siobhan isn't with us in person today is actually that it's St. Patrick's Day, a national holiday in Ireland. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone, and let's hear Siobhan's learnings.
Hi there, my name is Siobhan Hennessy and I'm Head of Consumer Experience Design in Musgrave in Ireland, and delighted to be with you. So just to start off, really, and kind of what I'm here to talk to you about is really about embedding innovation culture and creating ambassadors within the business for design thinking. But before I start, just a little bit of background, as I'm sure some of you in the audience won't be aware of Musgrave. So Musgrave is a 145-year-old 6th generation family business. This is an original photo of our store in Cork. We are the leading grocery and retailer and wholesaler in Ireland. We have about 750 stores around Ireland through our brands SuperValu, which is supermarket, and Centra convenience stores. We feed about 1 in 3 people on the island of Ireland every single day in conjunction with our partners. So we have a massive infrastructure. I think we have the largest fleet of trucks on the island of Ireland, massive infrastructure, getting food on people's tables every day. And finally, which was a surprise to me when I joined the company 5 years ago, we're actually the 2nd biggest employer in the country after the HSE, our equivalent of the NHS. So we have probably about 8,000 people in the core business, but with our shops throughout and our partners throughout Ireland, we probably have about 35,000 people, moving up to about 50,000 if you include the producers, etc. So let me get on to the topic at hand. And so as I said, I look after customer experience design in the business, and our role is twofold. First of all is to actually work with different parts of the business on value proposition build and building new brands and products and services through the application of design thinking. So myself and my very small team will work cross-functionally with a lot of different parts of the business, including with our own people within the innovation function, innovation department within which I sit. But the second part of our role is really about customer centricity, and that's kind of the topic of what we're talking about today. And it's really about how do we make people in the business become more innovative, more agile, and more customer-centric. In my experience in kind of different companies I've worked for, and even within Musgrave, we tend to fall back into the whole area of telling people to be customer-centric or be innovative without actually giving them the tools within which to be it, or we measure it, etc. But we just really need to mind that gap between us thinking it's a natural process to be customer-centric, whereas there is actually methodologies to learn this. And this has been our approach in Musgrave. You know, I love this Chinese saying of what I hear, I forget, what I see, I remember, what I do, I understand. So really, this was all about rallying the troops in the business to understand what are the tools and techniques to be more innovative and more consumer-centric. So we started off slower on this approach probably about 4 years ago. And really, if you look here on this graph, on the one side we have learning time, and on the other side we have how well learning is applied to people's day-to-day work and a cultural change within the business. So the first area we looked at was sheep dips. So we had people that were initially interested in the work we were doing, because if you remember, we started off doing projects ourselves, and I think that's really important. And we started giving them 90-minute training around what is design thinking, how does it work, etc. And then we moved from there and partnered with Hellon to do one-day tasters. And this was predominantly for management training, so those more senior in the business, a full day around design thinking. And whilst this is really good, and obviously it's quick learning time, it doesn't really change how people work on a day-to-day basis. And thus, we introduced our Musgrave Design Academy. And one thing that was really important throughout all of this really is top down. So whilst all of our training, or most of our training, is kind of bottom up, probably see middle management upwards, really the exec and top down approach and sponsorship was absolutely key. And that was something we went for at the very beginning. And I'll kind of give you more examples of how that worked as well. Another area that we really focused on is the people that we chose to be on the Design Academy. We call them design ambassadors, you know, to make them, and they all have this digital badge as well, to make them feel a sense of responsibility that, you know, they're getting this training, but they are that point of light, and they have to actually start emanating that light within their own department in terms of customer centricity and using service design or design thinking as a way of working. So the program itself, the Design Academy program that we set up, which is the majority and the main part of our cultural work at the moment, was 5 training days that cover all key aspects of design thinking, but also really importantly for us is 5 project work days. So back to that original Chinese quote, you know, you learn through doing. What we embarked on from the very beginning and the very first of our design academies was all around solving real life business problems for the business. And again, I mentioned earlier about that top-down approach. What we did is we approached the executives or the senior directors, and we said, you give us problems that you are grappling with, and we will give this team of people those problems to solve for the business through the application of service design, design thinking as a way of working. So it very much got a lot of interest, or this was very much a hook internally for people to learn, not only learn, but also a real life demonstration that this way of working will help the business. Because after each of the design academies, our team actually present to our executive, and the project teams present to the executives and the senior directors in the business on their outcomes. And each time we do that, that increases the buy-in from the senior teams and the exec teams, because they actually see real life how through the application of only 5 working days, this methodology and way of working can really transform the business to become more innovative and customer centric. One thing that was really important for us is measurement, and how are we actually making change within the business. And we measure the whole way through these academies, but also kind of before and after. So our before and after results are really strong in areas that we were happy for them to be strong in. So 58% is an increase on the right hand side here. You'll see in the use of design thinking day to day. On the bottom red box there as well, 45% increase in the use of prototyping as a methodology, which is really key. A couple of ones in the middle part here. So they're much more confident now in managing innovation projects. They'll test ideas with users before launching. While they were doing a bit of that, now it's kind of going up to that 100% range. And really importantly for us, one of the things we measured is, do you have the tools and the processes to be really innovative around products and services? Whereas before, the training was at about 44% and went up to 89% post-training. So really good indication that this works and this works well. So definitely get your internal advocates. And what I found within Musgrave that was a surprise for me, it wasn't intentional, but it worked out very well at the end, is HR. So getting the human resources department really bought into this and being your advocate, that really helps. I mentioned earlier about senior buy-in and sponsorship, really, really key. Handpick your attendees. It's really important, whoever is going to be on your design academy, to that they're the right people, they're at the right level, they have the right type of attitude, and they'll be able to influence on that point of light note the rest of the business. And also really important is to partner with credible external experts. I think if we had done this internally ourselves, albeit that we know a lot about design thinking and service design, it wouldn't have had the clout it had. So we've been partnering with Hellon for the last 5 years, and I have in a previous company as well, so probably 8 years, and they have been unbelievably fantastic in terms of designing, not only designing the material, but also delivering it. And everyone on these design academies love actually being taught by the amazing Andy, and we had Lotta earlier on as well, and Zainab, and Elisa, and Harriet as well, and Pinya. So we've had fantastic rapport, and I think it's been really important. So linking it to outcomes is a second block for me. So the 5th point is really about integrating training into real life business problems that are specific to your business. I think that is 100% vital, showcasing the projects as well with senior stakeholders, and that measurement piece that I brought you through. The final part is the inspiring piece, and the first part here on point 8 is not to be a slave to the terminology. Sometimes we get too lost in all the terminology that goes with service design and design thinking, and people in the business can feel that it's something too mysterious and something too difficult. So sometimes it might be useful actually to integrate your own language into this and translate it into what's suitable to your own business. Branding the program, you'll see here we have our Yellow Design Academy was key, and we were giving out very specific notebooks that ended up being very exclusive in the business, and people were ringing me up saying, where can I get my Design Academy notebook? So there was things like that were really important. Gathering stories post-implementation. We have amazing stories from people on projects that they worked on and how that's kind of changed the way they've worked, and I think it's to keep those, not just the measurements, but keep those stories alive. So that's me for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that has been of some interest and some help. And if anyone needs to get in touch with me after this, I'm really happy to take any emails or calls. Thanks, Mill, and thanks again to Hellon.
Thank you so much to Siobhan, wherever you are today celebrating the holiday. Now we have our final speaker, who is Suvi-Tuuli Tuukkanen, Senior Vice President of Corporate Brand and Corporate Social Responsibility at Veikkaus. Let me just stop my screen share here so that we can get Suvi-Tuuli.
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Brilliant. Hopefully you can also see me. Let's see if I can make this work. Now you should see my screen.
Yes.
Yes. So so many good things there. I was listening to presentations earlier and I was like, okay, so many things we've done wrong, but maybe it's about test and learn. So I'm from Veikkaus, and just to introduce Veikkaus very, very quickly, we are a national monopoly for all lottery, betting, gambling, casino games in Finland. One of the best known brands. And we have a bit over 2 million customers, of which 80% are registered. So lots of data from gaming. We have our 90 own gaming outlets, and our e-commerce site is one of the biggest in Finland. We have 1,300 employees and almost 6,500 points of sale. So quite many touch points for developing the customer experience. And also I'd like to share in the beginning a thing that makes things a bit more tricky for us is the thing that the industry itself is very highly regulated. So we cannot deliver all the things that the customers would like to see. Either it would be illegal or it would not be responsible. So that makes things a bit trickier, and also makes us, you know, the definition of good customer experience is certain because of the job we have to do to make everything as responsible as it gets. And customer experience is also part of Veikkaus' vision. We aim to be the trailblazer in responsible player experience. So it is there. And I'll go forward with the presentation and start telling about the program. We started the program of this customer centricity around 2 years ago. Actually, this picture is from the end of 2018. So we've been talking about this for quite a while. And when we first started talking about the thing, it was a first task. It was to have a shared understanding of the vision and the context and the framework, like what we are actually talking about. And that was the first thing, because when someone talked about the customer centricity or improving the customer experience, they talked about the culture and the systems. Someone talked about the end user experience. Someone talked about data. So we kind of needed to make it visible, like what are we actually talking about? And what was easy and what's been difficult? It was very easy to get the understanding from the managers or the management board, and actually from the board of directors as well. Like, why is this important? Why we need to put focus on it? It was easy. Also, it was easy to set up the framework. Like, what are we talking about? It was fairly easy to clarify the vision. And after that, it got trickier. So how, also one point in the customer understanding, we were actually already pretty good in gathering the customer understanding. We have a kind of a good background within both qualitative and quantitative methods, analytics, data. So many things there were pretty easy, but we weren't good at transferring the insight to actual improvements in the end user experience. So that was tricky. And especially what's been the most trickiest part is it's a culture and the systems part. And that's the main thing I'm going to talk about now. Quite early on, we set up this kind of a board where we follow up on how we are making progress. And when I looked at this same scoreboard around half a year ago, there were a lot of reds and a lot of yellows. And now we have 2 bright greens, and rest of the things we are working on are somewhere between ready and ongoing. So many things are happening, and you can see on the top the transformation framework, the customer understanding, like different areas we are working on. And the vision and KPIs was the part we started from. Also, segmenting the customer base was something we needed to do again. We've done it like multiple times, but at this time we switched it to such way of segmenting the customers that we can actually utilize it in day-to-day jobs and build measurable KPIs for each and every customer. So that was also important. But now I will go to the customer-centric culture and ways of working. And you saw earlier the Laura and Sivan presenting the ambassador program, and we do also have a CX ambassador program. And we launched the program in the beginning of 21. And actually in the beginning, we selected 70 customer experience ambassadors from Veikkaus employees, and everybody was allowed to apply, but we did do some prior selection to make sure that from certain roles there were people on the program. And also as the previous presentation, there were ambassadors from different levels of the organization. Mainly our ambassadors are from the operative level. Before we even started the whole program, we had quite many like design thinkers. We had service designers, UX designers, and so forth. So many of the tools they were already in use, but only in selected parts of the projects we do. But we launched the program, and the main aim was to start implementing the CX vision and the CX pillars. So that is kind of the picture of the customer experience we want to generate. So we wanted to implement those and started conversations all around the organization, like what would this vision mean for each and every one of Veikkaus employees. And this is quite directly from Laura's presentation, but the ambassadors have threefold role. They both work as ambassadors within their daily jobs. So they are implementing the pillars in their daily work. They are deepening the understanding of what the pillars mean. They are setting an example and so forth. They do also have their own community. So we do a lot of training. We started with the training, and now we are going towards the second set of training this spring. They do have a lot of virtual meetings and their own Teams channel and so forth. So a lot of connection there. And also we use them orienting the new employees, seasonal employees. They are part of our RD projects and so forth. So many things they do, but what we've learned is that because we didn't have a kind of, it wasn't so clearly set the objectives for the ambassadors. There wasn't a concrete ownership of the ambassador program, and we didn't so strictly manage or steward how they work and what they're supposed to do. I think that there would be a lot more they could do that they've done, and we still do a lot of thinking like how in where we can utilize their skills. And I will end my presentation with this slide with a lot of text, and this is about the transformation, and many things already came through in the previous presentations, but we've spotted seven pitfalls for the customer-centric transformation, and also we've estimated like how risky is it for us to fall into these pitfalls, and how could we mitigate the risks. And firstly, we already heard this before, but one pitfall is that we might drive the transformation only from top down or from bottom up. And I think we kind of started too much from the bottom up. And the start of this whole transformation was because of that a bit slower. So you need ambassadors from all levels. You need them from the organization, from the operative level. You need them from the management level, and you need them from the C-suite. And also, it was said earlier that you know, it can be fun. The ambassador program, it can be fun. There are fun things, but also when you are entering this transformation, there will be resistance. Things will change, and this will generate resistance. There will be a honeymoon phase, probably. Things are exciting and inspiring and so forth. But then when things get tricky, when things get hard, then you need the management, you need the top level sponsorship to still drive the things forward. Then the second pitfall is like planning the planning. We are so good in PowerPointing and planning meticulously everything. And usually our organization is highly line organization, and people are used to expecting kind of guidance from top down. And what we've now started talking is the thing that the planning and the process is part of the delivery, not the actual delivery. We need to test and learn. We need to tolerate the imperfection, and we need to be ready to fail. We had, before this ambassador program, we had a certain same kind of a thing where we tried, like, how can we in a small scale work as CX-based teams and so forth, but it wasn't built it up in the whole organization structure. So it failed, and people felt kind of disappointed, and, you know, does this work, and is it possible to you know, start from scratch again and so forth. So be ready to fail. And also this room for creativity in execution is the thing that in our organization we do lean a lot in executives. Like, executives are the ones who finally will do the delivery towards the top management, and we need to give more credit and more room for the operative level and the experts there. Then is the objective setting. Like, if the objectives are too vague, the KPIs are not inspirational, they don't feel important on personal level, you are bound to fail. So you need to have a solid, clear story. You need to have objectives or KPIs that cut through the whole organization, kind of this OKR model that Google talks about. You know, that's kind of the only way to rock this thing. Also, what was a problem within Veikkaus was the thing that if we have too rigid, too exact roles and responsibilities, like no one is willing or able to step on the other people's like jobs to be done and so forth, it's going to be a problem. So a lot of learning to move towards this kind of matrix style organization, matrix style leadership, and to work on a more like these are the jobs to be done, go and deliver, rather than, you know, very strict, like this is your exact job and this is what you need to do. Then we draw conclusions on how things work only by lag measures. A lot of work has been put on the lead measures, like what leads to a great customer experience. That is one thing I think we've excelled. Also, in the early on, we thought that we could drive this change without changing the ways we work, changing the ways we report, changing the way we are organized, and these things have happened during these last 2 years. So probably when you start this, you know, in the end, everything will change and it will take time. So that is my key learning, that it will take time. And lastly is the thing that we drive too many changes, too many transformation programs simultaneously, and that is like on red, and that we still do. We try to do too many things simultaneously, and we work on prioritizing more. I will end my presentation here. Let's hope we still have time for at least a couple of questions.
Great, thank you so much, Suvi-Tuuli. We do have time for a few questions. There was one already actually from the audience, from Maria. So the question is, does employee experience have impact on customer experience? If you think about the B2B digital and software industry, this is quite specific. So do you guys have any experience on this or any pointers you could give to Maria?
First of all, hi Maria, nice to see you online. And thank you for your question. It's quite specific, and not knowing specifically kind of the background and focus of your organization, but generally speaking, through Hellon's focus and through the experience that we have within the variety of industries, it's quite evident that employee experience has always impact on customer experience. So how customer-centric, human-centric the organization is and tends to be, that always translate in the concrete experiences of customers, despite kind of the industry and the area that you're working with. So generally speaking, yes, it has an impact, but then let's continue the discussion and have a deep dive on your specific focus to understand a bit more your context. Suvi-Tuuli, do you want to add something on that?
Well, I agree. I think that employee experience relates directly like how much you get done. So if the employees are happy, if they enjoy what they are doing, it's more probable that you will get more projects, more improvements done. And that is one thing, even in the digital channel. But of course, I think that if you work in B2C business where you have actual customer facing employees, then of course the impact is more kind of direct. That's my point.
Great addition. There was one question to Suvi-Tuuli. So what has been an indication of the end of the honeymoon phase?
Oh, great. That's a good question. Well, the end of the honeymoon phase maybe is the phase where the top management, the CEO, start asking, like, what have you actually done? What have you actually delivered? That is one thing. And then when like the team working most closely to this thing, they start, hearing like, are we actually going somewhere? Are things changing? It starts to get frustrating, like we don't see the actual change. Now, when I rewind 2 years, I can see like we've done so many things, but when months come, months go, it feels like nothing is going on. And especially when you do big things, you launch things big, and then you realize like, okay, this is not gonna work. And people are like saying that, it doesn't feel good. I think those are the, things that point out that now, we need to really start delivering instead of just, talking and so forth.
Great. Maybe as a final question to both of you, there was a lot of learnings and really great to hear your experiences, but there's a lot of people in the audience who might be in the midst of a CX transformation or just starting. So what would be maybe the one key bit of advice or maybe even an experience of yours kind of on this journey that you would like to share?
So Suvi-Tuuli, do you want to start?
I'd say that the key learning is it's very hard. It's I have a background from creative industry, and the change happens really slowly, and you need to make it very, very simple, like and repeat, and make it concrete, like show improvement, show things you've done, show things like how the customer experience is actually the end user experience, how it is improving. And also the change in the culture, find the things that measure the change in the culture, in the ways of working throughout the organization, because that makes it visible on all levels, like what is happening. But it's inspiring when you now, looking back, you see that there is a change, but still it feels like we measure the kind of the maturity. We talk about like how mature we are and the customer centricity, and we feel that, okay, we are maybe somewhere in the step 2.5, probably. So we still have a lot of steps towards the 5, like being able to excel, but it's also, it's inspiring also. That's it.
I definitely agree with these points, and definitely hard work, a lot of being consistent, continuing, repeating the same messages, but then maybe coming back to the last point, the people are the change, you know. And if you can identify the people who get the most excited about these things, and you can recognize those and kind of, you know, empower them, they start to make the change happen. So it's not only about you driving the change alone, but it's about kind of spreading the word and empowering these quarterbacks and cheerleaders around you to build the change together. So that
brilliant point. Yes, you are not there alone.
Yes, exactly.
Super, we're coming to the end of our event, and I'd like to give a huge thank you to Suvituuli and Laura and Siobhan. As a final perk, please don't leave yet. Yes, as a final perk to you guys, a kind of an introduction to our next webinar. We want to give you a chance to try out Hellon's organizational assessment survey, which is fresh and new, and you get to test it out to find out how customer value driven your organization is. And you'll be getting the link in the chat now. And kind of to continue on that, our next Dare to Share event is going to be on the 5th of May. And we'll be continuing around the topic of CX transformations. And we're going to have a couple of other Hellon transformation experts. We have Kirsikka Vaajakallio, Emilia Gustafsson, and Marian Parts, who are going to be talking to us around the focus of kind of the bigger picture of CX transformations within organizations. And they're going to be playing back the results of the organizational assessment survey. So please do join us to hear about the results. But yeah, with that, I'd like to wish everyone a great day, and really hoping to see you in our next Dare to Share event.